Rev up your engines! Okay, everybody knows I'm not a big Volkswagen fan. We're going to get to the root of this Tiguan. It's 2010, it's just turning 100,000 miles. Isn't running all that bad, but he took it to the Volkswagen dealer and they told him that he needed a little over $7,500 of work done to it. So let's see what they're making up, what needs to be done, and what you're going to live with. Now, he likes the car because it gets good gas mileage. Now, it is in Rhode Island, so aluminum and Rhode Island don't go together too well. You know, you can polish it if you want. They do have a reasonable amount of space in them. It's a 2.0T. The 2.0T tells you something. This particular one doesn't burn any oil. An elderly gentleman owns it, and he obviously drives relatively conservatively. Just realize that the 2.0 turbo engine, if you ask any Audi or Volkswagen mechanic, will tell you it's the ones that have the most problem with the engines blowing up because the turbos drain the engine a lot, and especially people who do not change the oil and drive them hard. My friend who works as an Audi mechanic here on the East Coast said he changes out scores of them every year. They do go up. If you don't change the oil and you beat them, change the oil and take care of them, they can be good engines, but the average American doesn't do that. This isn't a V8 engine you can beat the heck out of. You got to take care of it. Now, he's taking care of it and changed the oil, so it doesn't burn any oil. It's not having that problem. Now, I noticed one thing when I'm opening the hood. He's got the window open because the handle's broken. These break all the time on Volkswagens. Bit of an inconvenience, but I mean, he can fix it if he wants. It'll break again. We're going to get under the hood. $7,500 of work the Volkswagen dealer says this car needs. Now, as we get under, we see it is a 4-cylinder engine, 2.0 liter. It's a decent size, but it is turbocharged. Now, don't get me wrong, the Germans know how to turbocharge cars. You gotta maintain them. You ever think about buying one of these or buy one used, you want records of all the oil changes on a used one. Because if the oil wasn't changed regularly, these engines are disaster areas. He's changed it so it isn't a disaster area yet, but Volkswagen is kind of saying it is. They're saying that it's leaking oil all over the place. Well, you can see it's leaking some oil, but they say the front main seal, so they got to take all that apart. Then they're saying the rear main seal, so they got to take the transmission out of the car to change that. So let's get my trusty flashlight and start looking around. Now, you'll typically see this on most Volkswagens just because of their designs and the turbocharged with extra pressure. Definitely the front main seal's leaking. I can see the oil getting on the belt a little bit. Look at the transmission. I can see there's a little bit of oil coming out too, but let's go to the bottom. He's one step ahead of me, so it hasn't dripped yet, so we're gonna go and look. The flashlight on, and you can see, yes, it's definitely leaking on the rear main seal. And you can see the front, where the front main seal's leaking. If you don't lose that much oil, most people are gonna live with the rear main seal leak, because the rear main seal is on the back of the engine. The torque converter bolts on the flywheel, goes into the transmission. In order to change it, you can only do two things. You either pull the engine out, which is a tremendous pain in the butt, or you pull out the transmission, which is a less of a pain in the butt, but it's still a very expensive job. This AT205 reseal just had the oil changed, so the oil's clean. He's gonna buy some, put a bottle in. See what happens after 200, 250 miles. If it stops dripping in his driveway, he knows it fixed the problem. It can fix it. It's a polymer, and it rejuvenates rubber seals. I put them in some cars. I did a Volvo a few years ago that the oil was just pouring out the main seal in the back between the engine and the tranny. Just drip. You can watch it dripping like Niagara Falls coming down. I put a can in, idled at 30 minutes, drove at 15, and it stopped leaking. It's amazing stuff. So he's going to try that before he spends thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars taking it apart to replace those seals. One of the reasons those seals are going bad is because it is a 2.0T. As I said, they're notorious for it. Turbocharging does one thing. It takes your exhaust gas, spins it on a turbine. The other side of the turbine is a compressor turbine. That throws compressed air into the engine, which is more pressure. The more pressure that's in the inside of an engine, the faster the seals are going to leak out, because the system is now a higher pressured system. The more pressure you use, the more problems you're going to have as things age. That's why I tell people, if you got a choice, don't get a turbo. They'll last longer. Now, he didn't even know he had a turbo. He said, it's a turbo? I said, I thought it said turbo on the car. He said, no, 2.0T means it's a turbo, right? Knowledge is power in this case. If this would have been a 2-liter non-turbo, it probably wouldn't be leaking. Now, it wouldn't be as zippy. He likes it because it's a zippy car. If you take the turbo off this car, you're losing probably 45% of your acceleration. That's why people put turbos in. But the downside is they wear out faster, and in this case, he changed the oil regularly. It's not an oil burner. It's an oil leaker because the pressure just has made the seals go bad. We're going to try the AT205 and we'll see what happens at the time with that. If you got a situation like this, it's a worthwhile thing to try. It's not pouring out, and even if it was pouring out, I'd say great. Put it in now. If the pouring starts slowing down, you know it's working. Give it 250 miles driving to see if it'll seal it or not. Now, if it does seal it, that's fine. What you do then is, every time you change the oil, you put another bottle of AT205 reseal, because when you change the oil, the AT205 is a polymer oil. It will go out with the old oil, so you got to put more in. But considering they wanted over 7,500 smackers to fix this thing, and you get a bottle of that stuff for 20-something bucks, I'd say every time you change the oil, sticking that in is a real bargain. This is a pretty advanced engine. It is turbocharged, and that's what wears these things out faster. Now, he just told me the cooling fans have failed, and I forgot that the handle was broken, so let's start it up and listen to it. Now, it is a typical 2.0 Volkswagen Audi engine. It's relatively loud. Now, some of that's the valve. They make a lot of noise as they age in Volkswagens, but you can see it's not shaking, doesn't particularly run bad. That's something you live with. Let's face it, Volkswagen Beetles, they had noisy engines too. They were air-cooled, kind of loud. The main thing here is you don't want to have to pull the engine and or the transmission out to fix some oil leaks. Now we got it running. Let's hook up my computer. There you go, we're gonna do an auto scan. And of course, they work better if you turn the car off than just have the idiot lights on. Notice it's a 2010 Tiguan. Yeah, we'll do an automatic scan. And as you can see, it goes through 60 separate total systems. It might take a while. Now, if you ever have to work on a Volkswagen, you have to have a fancy machine like this, because you see, there's a lot of things you don't see on normal cars. You gotta have a machine like this to interface with. Well, it's done 40 out of 60. It's still working away. So we'll look inside. I mean, it's a nicely set up vehicle. He loves driving it around, because of course it's zippy with that turbo. And it's got a lot of space and a nice black and chrome interior. Sure, the steering's wearing out. They don't make steering wheels like they used to. But the seats are still comfy. For a Volkswagen, this isn't bad. Out of the 60 systems, there's only 4 trouble codes. So we'll start down here, and that's the radio. So we really don't care much about that. And here we go. The right front bass speaker has an open circuit. So we know the right front bass speaker isn't working. So you still hear music, but the right front bass speaker isn't working. Whoop-de-doo. We don't care about that. So we'll go back one, and back another, and we'll check the other one that has 3 codes. Okay? And that is electronic central electric, which could be a lot of things, so let's see what that is. Trouble code, or codes, since there's 3 of them, and we'll see what craziness comes up here. Really, I'm shocked that it doesn't have more. Left front tail lamp open circuit, right front brake light bulb open circuit, fuel pump open short circuit to ground. Well, that's more like it. I'm used to seeing these codes on Volkswagens. And a lot of these are ghost codes, because let's say the fuel pump circuit did have a short. Guess what? The car wouldn't be going anywhere because the fuel pump wouldn't have electricity. But check it out. It starts and runs fine, so there's a lot of codes on a Volkswagen that you just say on. But as long as we're in here, we'll clear those stupid things. That'll turn the codes off. And as long as we're here, what the heck? We'll start her up. We'll look at live data. There's an awful lot of channels to look at. So we'll go back in time here and start over. Then we're going to go to engine electronics, kind of like the ECU in a regular car. Like I say, Volkswagen calls everything by a different name just to be swines. But here we go, live data. That should give us some interesting data. Here we go. And as you notice in the bottom corner here, there are 331 parameters we can mess around with. All I got to say is, thank goodness they're color-coded. If they're bad, they'll be a different color. Let's look at some regular things here. See if anything looks odd. So far, everything looks pretty good. I gotta say, the Germans, when they do something, they go all out. These even have altitude correction factors. So we're almost at sea level. Well, I'm 145 feet above sea level right now. That's a high point in Rhode Island. If you drove up in the Rocky Mountains, it'll correct and it'll run fine at the mountains too. So when it works, it's fascinating technology. And you can see it as 4-cylinder engine. The misfire is 0000. It's never misfired. And so we're going down. Nothing else looks weird yet. Like I said, they go all out. Look at this. Oxygen sensor aging test. It can even test them as they age to see if they're out of specifications. Now, that's really going all out. And for those of you who are worried about Big Brother's watching you, he sure is watching it, because they've got a thing here that gives the information if you get in an accident. The Germans are watching you whether you know it or not. Now you can see, now the camshaft has a tiny amount of wear because it's saying the adjustment here should be 28 and the actual is 27.50. But that's pretty close for a vehicle that's got 99,000 miles on it. The cams have a tiny bit of wear, but it's nothing to worry about. Traveling weather station knows the atmospheric pressure too, 1015, 1020 millibars. But this is what you want to see, okay? Fuel correction factor. 0.00. That means it's running perfectly. You can't get any better than 0.00. So, in this case, they built this one good in Deutschland, other than putting a turbo on it. And we finally get to the end of the 331 things, and everything was hunky-dory. So I'll take it for a little spin. Now, if you listen, it's got loud tires, and he may be old, but his ears still work, and it bothers him. If he wants to get rid of the noise, well, guess what? You're gonna have to get softer, quieter tires. Somebody's always coming down this road. They just keep coming. One side's open, the other side's closed. All right. Nope, we're gonna have to wait. This car hiding behind a truck. All right, here we go. We got room. Go. Hey, this thing gets up and goes. It's spinning those tires. Now see, that's the reason they have turbos in them, because it makes them screaming cars to drive. It does wear the engines out faster, but it makes them absolute screamers. And even though this has got almost 100,000 miles on it, it's still got the screaming acceleration it had the day it was made. And that's one of the problems with many German cars. And I've seen it over the years. I'll get customers to buy a used Volkswagen, used BMW, used Audi, you name it. They'll get it used with 100-something thousand miles. So they'll see how fast it goes. And they still go just as fast. But then they blow up. If you do buy a used German car, please don't drive it as fast as it can possibly go, because it will still go really fast until it blows up. Maybe pretend that top speed is about half of what the top speed is and keep it that. You won't have any problems. So, now you know a little bit more about this Volkswagen with the 2.0 turbo engine. Look, it's got wings, it's flying. The guy likes the car. The Volkswagen dealer tried to rip him for $8 grand worth of repairs on an old thing like this. The sealer could definitely work. If it doesn't work, I would live with the rear main seal leak. But I would fix the front one. But I've had some great luck with that AT205 reseal sealer. He's ordered it from Amazon. It's on its way. He's going to pour it in. It still goes like stink with the turbo, but as I said, turbos wear things out faster. If this didn't have a turbo, I can guarantee you the front and the rear main oil seals would not be leaking, because he changes the oil all the time. It's the pressure that made the things leak. And unfortunately, you got to pull the transmission or the engine out to change the rear main seal. We'll see how the sealer works over time, but they're zippy, they are fun to drive. But when you go to the Volkswagen dealer, you better get those Deutschmarks out and start throwing them around if you want them to fix it. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.